I don't know if it's always lack of trust, um, but I think that everybody knows how to people, or they think they know how to people.
Welcome back to another episode of We're Not Recording. Today we chat with Angela Kiniry, CPO at Articulate. We talk all about finding fulfillment in your HR career. Tune in for a fun episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Athena, the company that pays for my salary. Check us out if you're looking for a better way to do compliance training. But I was so excited that you were down to chat with us. And one of the questions I always like to ask people who say yes to speaking on our podcast is, why? What attracts you to podcasts? What makes you comfortable speaking up? And was that always true? Or was there a time when you were scared to speak publicly?
Oh, I would say that there is a time when, not was a time, is a time where I'm
Okay.
scared to speak publicly and, just stretching and growing. And so I was like, I didn't respond right away. I don't know. I think I took about 6, maybe 4 to 5 weeks to
It's
respond. And I
okay.
was like, I'm processing. And, I listen to podcasts all the time and loved listening to yours. And
Oh,
yeah. And so I was like, I do feel like Articulate has a story to tell. And that, I do as well. And so I was like, well, let's try this.
well, that's amazing. Why don't we start there? You are the CPO at Articulate. Tell me a little bit more about how you got there and what you're doing.
Sure. So I've been with Articulate for almost 11 years. It'll be 11 years in May. And what landed me there was I had applied I had left my last org and I went to do some consulting. And I knew that consulting wasn't for me. Don't I'd like to naturally and intrinsically help people, but I don't want to charge them money for it. And so that was really hard for me. I'd be like, "Oh no, I'll just do that for you," or "I'll just do that for you,"
Yeah,
and not charge any money. And it's lonely consulting. I also am
sure.
a people person, and so I thought that I want to get back into working within an organization again. And I found an ad at flexjobs.com, and it was
Mm.
for they called it a people happiness manager. So it was their first ever HR person that they had joined the company. And so I applied for it. And lo and behold, I ended up getting the job. And it's been a tremendous journey of all sorts of happiness and growth and all of the above.
I'm so glad to hear that, and also not surprised. I've talked to so many people who, especially during the pandemic, they switched to fractional or consultant work because in-house work at that time was just so emotionally draining. And over the past, I want to say like year or two, many of them have been switching back in-house. Obviously that wasn't your situation because you've been with them for 11 years now, but just a lot of people have been missing that sense of team camaraderie, of stability, all that stuff. I do have maybe a slightly controversial question to ask
Ooh,
you.
okay.
So you said the title you applied to was happiness manager. Did I hear that right?
You did, yes.
Okay, I have seen a lot of drama around giving titles like happiness officer in the people space. What's your take? Clearly, you were okay with it, at least at the time.
I think at the time I was definitely okay to join the organization. We evolved the title fairly quickly. I don't really think that it's a great title for our space because not everything we do is happy, you know?
Yep, yep. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't
Yeah,
agree more.
so we did evolve the title,
Yeah,
fairly
okay.
quickly on my journey, and,
Yeah.
but that is the title that the role was posted for.
Why do you think there was a movement for a while to incorporate titles like happiness when it came into HR, and what do you think has led to the shift in recent years?
Oh, that is a great question. I think it's probably humanizing HR, and so I do feel that the shift to happiness, and then ultimately now, most of us are going by the people function, but it's really, I think it's just part of the evolution that HR made
Yeah.
from that administrative position to like happiness and culture,
Yeah.
and how can we bring our culture to life to really being this humanity focused, human centered, people first focus, understanding that we are business. We do have financial responsibility and fiduciary responsibility to the organization, and also we're dealing with humans, right? So I do feel like that was probably part of the shift.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that for a while there was just this fundamental misunderstanding of what HR's role was. The way I define it is, our goal is to drive business results through performance.
Mhm.
And one of the ways that we drive performance can be employee happiness, but not always, right? To your point, some things we do don't make employees happy. And to be honest, if you're optimizing for making every employee happy, you're probably not going to succeed as a business. Not every company is going to make every employee happy at every stage in their career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I asked, we recently updated one of our engagement survey questions. We used to ask, what was it that we used to ask? So we changed it from, uh, would you recommend Athena as a place to work? And we changed it from that to, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know today, would you still choose to work at Athena when we made the offer? And what we really liked about that switch was, I think we were getting incorrect data with the other one, where it was like, maybe I'm not happy at Athena anymore, but that doesn't mean it was a bad hire or that I wasn't happy before. And so I really like that shift for us anyway has provided much more insightful data into our recruitment process. But what's your take on that?
I love where you're going with that question. It's a little bit of the questions that we ask managers, like in our pause and reflect, and we ask them, would they, knowing what they know today, would they go back and hire this person? Because it's so insightful to ask that question and just pause and reflect on that versus, hey, yeah, I'd recommend, Articulate or Athena is a great place to
Yeah,
work. But you're really not getting to the root of that question with that, right? And so
totally. Yeah.
switching that just a little bit. I love where you all are pointing with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Love. Okay. Well, I know that I wanted to ask you a bit of a personal question just because many of yeah, but don't worry. We've talked about this one before. For anyone listening in, Angela has been such a trooper. I've just been pummeling her with unscripted questions here because I'm just so curious. But a lot of our listeners have shared that what resonates with them most on the podcast is getting to see the more human side of HR professionals and being able to identify with the speakers and seeing themselves in us. And so, one of the questions I want to ask is, you know, in HR land, we are so focused on everyone but ourselves that sometimes we forget to prioritize what makes us happy, what we want to achieve. And so I'm curious to know, as you think about yourself, what are you most grateful for?
Oh, so this is a good question. And I'm actually going to talk about a personal thing that I'm most grateful for. And
Love it.
that is becoming a mom. And so,
Oh,
yeah, it wasn't an easy journey for me. It required a lot of resilience and bravery. And, I fell down a lot on the journey, and it was 5 years in the making. And so I am so grateful that, I was able to become a mom.
oh. How do you think becoming a mom impacted the way that you approach HR, if at all?
No, it doesn't. It's a great question, Melanie, because I was thinking about that. I thought you might ask me that. Um, and I do think it has shaped me as a leader, giving me empathy. One of the other things, the biggest thing for me, I think, is resiliency. And then also as a leader, just that understanding that and appreciation that everybody has all of these different things that they're experiencing in their life. They show up at
Yeah.
Articulate or on the Zoom camera, and you don't know all of the things that are really going on within a human. And it's just that gratitude grounds me and reminding me that there is humanity first and creating space for folks on their journey that they have lives outside of work that they're living. And so I think that that's how it's really shaped me.
It's interesting that you say that because I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I want to say over the past year or so. I have historically and traditionally in my career been like a very straight talking, no nonsense kind of HR professional. I'm very big on the don't sugarcoat, clear is kind. If someone's job is at risk, say it, because at least then they know that either they need to improve quickly or it's time to start looking for jobs. I would rather tell you that now than you find out at the last minute because I, as a manager, was too scared to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then you're left without a plan. But I think where I have been trying to get a little bit better is that in my efforts to be so direct and honest with employees, I think I have forgotten the importance of I don't want to say that I lacked empathy, but more the importance of giving space for the employee to talk about or acknowledge blockers that you may be unaware of.
Hmm.
More specifically, I think I walked into too many conversations saying, hey, I have something tough to say to you. You're not meeting expectations. And listen, I believe in you. That's why I'm talking to you about this now. Let's figure out what we need to do to turn it around.
Yeah.
But I think that conversation would have been so much more powerful if I had paused to say, before we jump into solutioning and problem solving, I want to pause. What's holding you back? Is there something I'm unaware of? Or like, what's going on in your head? Because I think just that point of acknowledgement of I'm dealing with parenting issues, or hey, I have a personal matter that I don't feel comfortable talking about, but it is holding me back. I think just giving that space to say that is so much more empowering to the employee versus feeling demoralized and immediately scared about job loss. I don't know what goes through your mind as I say that.
Oh, I think all of that, and I think it's built on trust, right? So that you have that trust and that you build that trust with humans so that you're able to have those conversations and that maybe they're able to open up. And even if they don't want to, that they'll at least share with you, hey, I'm
Yeah.
struggling with something right now, and that's impacting how I'm showing up. Oftentimes, when folks have come to me on their journey, or I think, okay, someone's not performing well, one of the things that I do pause and think about is there something going on in their lives right now? Because often if you have like a really great performer and then all of a sudden they're not a great performer, something's happening, right? There's some root there that we need to get to, and just having that conversation and creating the space for them and having empathy, also understanding that we do need to hold them accountable to deliver and having that balance.
I think that's the key and where I got a little lost in the sauce. I think that I was conflating, hey, the fact that you have a personal issue doesn't change the expectations of the role
Right.
with, hey, that doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge that someone is having a hard time and talk about if there are ways that you can work with them around this to still get the required output from them. And so to sort of like explicitly acknowledge that and say, hey, yes, expectations are the same, but knowing that that person is going to feel more like you care about them, more valued, more motivated to turn things around, knowing that you care, that is what makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And that you heard them, you
You
know,
heard them.
you
Yeah.
heard them,
Yeah.
and that you're holding a little bit of space for them on their journey.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, speaking of HR and thinking about themselves, needing to think about themselves a little bit more, when have you felt least fulfilled in your own career? And what insights stand out to you about that time?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. These are all great questions, Melanie.
I try.
Um, you know, I'm going to go back to trust. Trust is really, obviously, that's a core value of mine, but I felt least fulfilled in my career when there was missing trust between myself and leadership. Um, and that I really couldn't show up as my full self, or, I don't want to use the word psychologically safe, but there is a safety component to it. And I remember a couple of different situations along my career where trust was missing, and it was really it was hard. It was hard times. It was hard times on me personally, and I grew most as an individual and a leader through those times.
Mm,
And I also remember saying at one organization that I was at, I felt like I was hiking Mount Everest without oxygen because it's so depleting without that trust for me. And what stands out, you asked about what stood out about that, is when I think about that leadership dynamic at the top, and
yeah.
that it without that trust, it doesn't just impact myself, it impacts my team because it
Totally.
rolls down. Because if I don't feel safe, I don't have that trust with my leadership, then, you know, I can't show up authentically. I can't show up vulnerably. I can't show up empathetically, with my team. So it ripples down throughout the organization, and the impact is broad when you think of good leadership and then also
Yeah.
not so good leadership. So, that's what sticks out for me.
The thing is, you're not alone in this challenge. So many HR professionals I talk to lament the lack of trust that they feel between themselves and their leadership team. What do you think is the cause of so much lack of trust between HR leaders and the rest of the leadership team?
Um, that's a great question. And I don't know if it's always lack of trust. Um, but I think that everybody knows how to people, or they think they know how to people. And so to all my fellow colleagues, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love you dearly.
yeah,
And, we know our space.
yeah.
And, but everybody has an opinion on people first,
Hmm.
you know.
How do how do you bridge that gap? Were you able to turn things around and build that trust at your company?
At both organizations, or both of the times that I was talking about, I feel like I made movement, and I go back to resiliency.
Yeah.
I push through, right, and
Mm,
I want to figure out how I can build trust with people because it is so important to me. Relationships are really important to me, and the other thing that I always do, or I often do when
yeah.
I'm going to say like struggling or things aren't going as well, I pause to think about what is the lesson that I'm supposed to be learning right now.
Mm.
Um, and so I do feel like I was successful. I think that the journeys ended in different ways, and but overall, I feel that I was able to create the trust that we needed to be successful.
That's amazing. I'm honestly both very impressed and also thinking about the fact that I think I have a much different approach, and I'd be curious to get your take on it.
It's okay, sure.
I have, at this point in my career, decided that I'm actually just unwilling to take the time to convince someone that I'm good at my job or that my counsel is worthy. And so I've actually just taken the approach of like, listen, if you don't trust me, this isn't going to work. I'll go work somewhere else. I'm curious to know what is your reaction to that? Because that's like, I think, a spicy take. Like, I'm just unwilling. It makes me miserable to have to feel like I have to validate myself constantly. Like, do you think I'm losing out on opportunities? What advice would you have for anyone else who has that approach? I'm like genuinely open.
No, I absolutely love that. I think that there's not one way to do anything. Whatever fits what your being, you as a human, fits you. And so if that's you're like, okay, peace out, time out.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
done.
I'm moving on. Great. That's what you need for you on your journey.
Mm.
I think maybe it's my Capricorn. Maybe I'm a little more stubborn.
It's
Maybe
a good challenge.
it's a good challenge, I'm gonna
Yeah.
figure out because I was like, "How am I gonna make this work?"
Yeah.
How am I, and it took a part of my being, I'm not gonna say it
Mm.
didn't.
Yeah.
I definitely aged through that, for sure.
Oh my gosh, the other day I found like 10 gray hairs and I was like, "Okay, it's starting to hit me, I guess." Carry on, carry on.
Yes, yes, yeah. So, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do anything. It's what
Yeah.
most is the way that honors you and who you are is the best way to go through it. So,
I think that's a fair point because there are challenges that I do enjoy. That just happens to not be one of them anymore. But I think also because I find trust is one of those, like, when I feel a lack of trust, to your point, it hurts me personally. Like, it hurts me. It's not. I don't feel that it's a growth opportunity. For me personally, it feels like, oh, this feels like you don't even see me as a person at the same level as you. That's just, I don't feel good in this environment.
yeah.
But I really like your perspective, which is, yeah, but this is a growth opportunity. Like, understanding, how do I persuade them? How do I switch things up? What can I take from this moment? So I like both. Okay, let's look on the bright side of things. When have you felt most fulfilled in your career?
Oh gosh, I felt most fulfilled in my career when I'm able to build. I love to build. Many of the organizations I've worked for, I've built their HR functions from scratch, and to do it through the employee experience lens. So
Yeah.
everything that we build through design, or most things we build through design thinking. And
Mm,
so we flip HR on its head.
yes.
Get people insights, what works here approach, not works what works somewhere
Yeah.
else, and how might we do this? Everything's always an iteration. We gather feedback all of the time. We have version 1, 2, 3, 4, and the org loves giving feedback. They
Mm.
love participating in pilots. We just finished two recent pilots in the org, and one was around 360 feedback, and then
Oh,
the
nice.
other was around transitioning to our quarterlies process versus this annuals process. And it's great feedback. And we're really excited to continue on the journey. So building, building, design thinking, all around the employee experience just makes me thrive.
Oh, love that. One quick question before we wrap. Were there any particular takeaways that stand out to you that are worth sharing with the audience today?
Our quarterlies, so we this is only our fourth year actually of having any type of performance enablement process.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been a journey. And when we first launched the program, it was supposed to be a continuous performance review process. However, it felt very annuals, and it felt like one time of year, and it felt very big and clunky. And so we evolved into the quarterlies process where we're going to do it
Yeah.
once a quarter, just a quick touch base. It's supposed to be super light. And, hands down, the org was everyone is like, we love this transition. We love this transition. We love this transition. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes doing quarterlies. If it feels too much each quarter, if we go to twice a year. But overall, I think it's a tremendous shift for the organization.
That is both amazing because I do think that that is the direction that more and more things are going, especially with the whole, AI takeover, less is more, doing things in small bite-sized amounts and just having it be continuous. So I think you all are paving the way. But also because I think it's indicative of something that is quite common in HR, which is I think people think that we want to do things that are boring and annoying to people, and actually, no. We are most excited when people are excited about the things we're doing. If you're not excited,
Absolutely.
then we're not excited.
Absolutely, for sure.
Ugh. Well, Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I really learned so much and I loved hearing your perspective.
All right. Well, thank you, Melanie.
If you're tired of surface level HR podcasts, look no further. We've got your back with We're Not Recording. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow me on LinkedIn.